There is a specific, haunting quality to the silence that follows you when you finally close the door to the world. It is not a peaceful silence. It is a vibrating, heavy stillness. It is the sound of a performance ending. For the last 8, 10, or 12 hours, you have been on stage. Not literally, perhaps, but psychologically. You have been navigating a minefield of other people's emotions, anticipating their needs before they speak them, softening the edges of your own personality so that you do not take up too much space, and carefully curating every word, every smile, and every gesture to ensure that you remain pleasant, usable, good. Now, in the safety of your solitude, you might expect to feel relief, but instead, you feel a profound, hollowing exhaustion. It is an exhaustion that sleep cannot touch because it is not physical fatigue. It is existential depletion. You feel drained not because you did too much work, but because you have spent the entire day suppressing the vital force of who you really are. You have spent the day holding your breath, metaphorically, waiting for permission to exist. This state of being, this chronic, compulsive agreeableness, is often celebrated by society. We are taught that to be nice is the highest virtue. We are praised for being the one who never complains, the one who is always available, the one who requires nothing. But if we peel back the layers of social conditioning and look at this behavior through the lens of deep psychology and neurobiology, we find something far more complex and far more tragic than simple kindness. We find a nervous system that is stuck in a perpetual state of threat. We find a person who is not acting out of love, but out of a desperate, terrified need for safety. We find that the nice person is actually a construct, a sophisticated suit of armor built to protect a fragile, wounded child who learned a long time ago that authenticity was dangerous. To truly understand the danger of being too nice, we must first dismantle the myth that it is a choice. Most people who identify as people pleasers believe they are simply choosing to be kind. They tell themselves, "I just care about people," or "I don't like conflict." But a choice implies autonomy. A choice implies that you could say no if you wanted to. For the chronic people pleaser, the no dies in the throat before it is ever born. It feels physically impossible to utter. The moment you consider disappointing someone, your heart rate spikes, your stomach churns, and a wave of catastrophic dread washes over you. This is not a moral decision. This is a biological reflex. In the language of trauma psychology, this is known as the Fawn Response. We are all familiar with the primal survival instincts of fight or flight. When faced with a predator, the body mobilizes energy to either attack or run away. Then there is the freeze response, where the body shuts down to play dead. But for humans, who are intensely social creatures, there is a fourth option: fawn. Fawning is the instinct to merge with the predator. It is the unconscious strategy of becoming so pleasing, so helpful, and so non-threatening that the attacker has no reason to hurt you. It is a submission response. In the wild, an animal might expose its throat to a dominant pack member to signal, "I am not a threat, please do not kill me." In human society, fawning looks like excessive apologizing. It looks like laughing at jokes that aren't funny. It looks like agreeing with opinions you actually despise. It looks like abandoning your own reality to validate someone else's. When you are too nice, you are essentially exposing your throat to the world, over and over again, begging for safety through submission. You are trying to control how others treat you by preemptively erasing anything about yourself that might be objectionable. But where does this instinct come from? Why does your nervous system perceive a simple social interaction, a friend asking for a favor, a boss making a request, as a life or death situation? To find the answer, we must travel back to the architecture of your childhood. The roots of extreme agreeableness are almost always found in the soil of conditional love. In an optimal developmental environment, a child learns that they have an inherent right to exist. They learn that they can be angry, messy, selfish, or sad, and their caregivers will still offer them a secure base of love. They learn that connection is stable, even when there is conflict. But for the people pleaser, the lesson was different. The lesson was that connection is fragile, and it can be withdrawn at any moment. Perhaps you grew up with a parent who was emotionally volatile, a parent whose mood shifted like the weather. One moment they were loving, the next they were cold, critical, or explosive. To survive in that environment, you had to develop a heightened sensitivity. You had to become a meteorologist of their moods. You learned to scan their face for micro-expressions of disapproval. You learned to listen to the tone of their footsteps in the hallway. You learned that if you could just be perfect, if you could just be quiet, if you could just anticipate what they needed before they asked, you could prevent the storm. Or perhaps you grew up with a parent who was fragile, depressed, or overwhelmed. In this dynamic, you weren't afraid of their anger, you were afraid of their collapse. You learned that your needs were a burden to them. You saw that they could barely handle their own lives, let alone yours. So, you made a silent, unconscious vow to become flow maintenance. You learned to parent yourself. You learned to suppress your own hunger, your own tears, and your own desires so that you wouldn't tip them over the edge. This phenomenon is known as parentification, where the child sacrifices their childhood to take care of the emotional well-being of the adult. In both scenarios, the child learns a devastating truth. I am not loved for who I am. I am loved for what I do. I am loved for my utility. I am loved for my compliance. You learned that your authentic self, the part of you that has needs, boundaries, and anger, is a threat to your survival. So you split yourself in two. You created a false self, the smiling, helpful, nice persona to present to the world. And you took your true self, the messy, needy human part, and you locked it away in the basement of your psyche. This is where the concept of the shadow becomes crucial. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, described the shadow as the part of the unconscious mind where we hide everything that we deem unacceptable. For the nice person, the shadow is not full of evil impulses. It is full of life. It is full of the power you denied yourself. It contains your ability to say no. It contains your healthy aggression. It contains your desires. And most importantly, it contains your rage. We need to talk about the rage. If you identify as a nice person, you probably recoil at the word rage. You might tell yourself, I'm not an angry person. I don't feel anger. But psychology tells us that emotion is energy. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed or displaced. When you spend decades suppressing your needs, when you allow people to cross your boundaries day after day, that violation generates energy. It generates heat. For the people pleaser, this anger does not vanish just because you refuse to feel it. Instead, it turns inward. It rots. Anger that cannot be expressed outwardly becomes depression. It becomes a heavy, suffocating blanket of sadness. It becomes anxiety, a constant trembling of the nerves because the body is holding back a scream. It manifests somatically as migraines, as digestive issues, as chronic pain, as autoimmune disorders. Your body is keeping the score. Your body is screaming the no that your mouth refuses to say. Furthermore, this repressed anger leaks out into your relationships in the form of resentment. Resentment is the specific poison of the too nice person. It is the bitter aftertaste of martyrdom. You see, niceness is often transactional. It operates on a covert contract. A covert contract is an unspoken agreement that you have made with the world, but the world never signed it. The contract goes like this. If I am perfectly self-sacrificing, if I deny my own needs to meet yours, if I am the best friend, partner, employee you have ever had, then you will naturally realize this, and you will give me the love, respect, and care that I crave without me having to ask for it. You believe that your sacrifice is a form of currency. You are paying in advance for love. But because you never state your needs, because you believe that having needs is selfish, the people around you do not know the contract exists. They just think you enjoy helping. They think you don't mind staying late. They think you truly don't care where you go for dinner. So they take what you give. And when they do not reciprocate in the exact way you fantasized, when they don't read your mind, you feel victimized. You feel used. A deep, simmering bitterness begins to build. You think, after everything I did for them, how could they be so selfish? But the harsh reality is that you taught them to treat you this way. You trained them to believe that your resources were infinite and free. You cannot blame people for walking over you if you have spent your entire life lying down and acting like a doormat. This dynamic creates a profound loneliness. The nice person is often the loneliest person in the room, even if they are the most popular. This is because intimacy requires two distinct individuals. Intimacy requires truth. If you are constantly shape-shifting to please others, if you are merely a mirror reflecting back what they want to see, then who are they connecting with? They are connecting with a mask. They are loving a performance. Deep down, you carry a terrifying secret. If they knew who I really was, they would leave. You believe that your true self is unlovable. So, every time someone compliments your kindness, it doesn't land. It feels like they are praising the actor, not the human. You feel unseen, not because people are blind, but because you are hiding. This hiding also makes you a magnet for a specific type of toxicity. In the ecosystem of relationships, the people pleaser and the narcissist are natural partners. It is a lock and key fit. The narcissist feels entitled to everything. The people pleaser feels worthy of nothing. The narcissist demands constant validation. The people pleaser is an endless supply of validation. You attract emotionally unavailable, selfish, or controlling people not because you are unlucky, but because your lack of boundaries signals to them that you are safe prey. A healthy person with strong boundaries will eventually annoy a people pleaser. Why? Because a healthy person will ask you what you want. A healthy person will not let you merge with them. A healthy person will require you to show up as a separate individual, and that is terrifying for someone who only knows how to fawn. So, how do we break this cycle? How do we dismantle a survival mechanism that has been hardwired into our biology for decades? The journey of healing from being too nice is not a gentle process of self-improvement. It is a radical restructuring of your reality. It is a death and a rebirth. The nice person persona must die so that the real person can live. The first step is the acceptance of guilt. This is the barrier that stops most people. The moment you start to set boundaries, the moment you say no, the moment you choose your own comfort over someone else's, you are going to feel a tidal wave of guilt. Your internal programming will scream that you are being selfish, bad, and cruel. You have to realize that in this context, guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking a pattern. Guilt is the growing pain of returning to yourself. You must learn to tolerate the physical sensation of guilt without acting on it. You must learn to sit in the discomfort of disappointing others. We have to redefine what it means to be good. We have been taught that goodness means compliance. But true goodness, true morality, requires agency. If you cannot say no, your yes is meaningless. A yes that is born out of fear is not kindness, it is coercion. True kindness is honest. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is to be difficult. The kindest thing you can do is to tell the truth about how you feel, even if it causes a rupture. Because that rupture offers the only chance for a real repair. You must also begin the work of shadow integration. You need to reclaim your aggression. This doesn't mean you go out and attack people. It means you acknowledge that you have teeth. You acknowledge that you have the capacity to be dangerous, to be formidable. When you know you can protect yourself, you no longer need to fawn. You can be kind because you want to be, not because you have to be. There is a peace that comes from this integration. It is the peace of no longer being at war with your own nature. Imagine for a moment a life where you are not exhausted. Imagine a conversation where you say exactly what you mean. Imagine a relationship where you are loved not for what you provide, but for who you are, flaws, edges, darkness, and all. This life is possible, but it requires you to make a choice that feels impossible. It requires you to choose yourself. It requires you to look at the people you love and realize that you cannot save them from their own emotions. You cannot manage their reality for them. You can only be a witness, a companion, a friend. You cannot be their savior, and you cannot be their doormat. The tragedy of the nice person is that they burn themselves to keep others warm. The redemption of the nice person happens when they realize that the fire was never meant to destroy them. The fire was meant to fuel them. It is time to let the facade crumble. It is time to stop apologizing for your existence. It is time to be real. Because the world does not need more nice people who are secretly resentful and slowly dying inside. The world needs people who are alive, people who are whole, people who have boundaries strong enough to hold their own truth and hearts open enough to handle the consequences. The silence that follows you when you close the door does not have to be heavy. It can be light. It can be empty of obligation and full of yourself. But to get there, you have to stop performing. You have to step off the stage. You have to let the audience be disappointed so that you can finally be free.